Today, I'm going to show you the exact amount of fiber you need to eat, not only to lower your blood sugar, but actually reverse insulin resistance, the root cause of chronically high glucose levels. Not guesses, not vague advice, and not just eat more vegetables and see what happens. We're going to walk through the exact fiber doses used in real randomized controlled trials, why fiber is one of the most powerful metabolic tools we have for blood sugar control, and how to apply this in real life with foods you already recognize. Because here's the reality. Most people never hear. Not all fiber works the same. Not all doses work the same. And most people are eating far below the range that actually produces changes in blood sugar levels. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly how many grams of fiber you need to eat per day, why fiber directly improves insulin sensitivity at the liver and muscle level, and what a full day of eating looks like when you're actually hitting the therapeutic range. And if you want the exact meal plans we use to implement this, comment guide below and we'll send you our free high fiber, low fat meal plans. Let's start by clearing something up. Most people think of fiber as a digestive nutrient, something that helps you stay regular, improves your gut health, or adds bulk to meals. But when you actually look at the research I'm about to show you, fiber stops being a digestive afterthought and becomes a true metabolic intervention, one that directly improves blood sugar, insulin resistance, cholesterol, inflammation, and even long-term survival. A large systematic review published in PLOS Medicine analyzed 42 randomized controlled trials spanning prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity, cardiovascular disease, and general cardiometabolic risk. That's decades of nutrition science across thousands of participants. What they found was remarkably consistent. When people increased total fiber intake to around 35 grams per day, fasting glucose dropped, A1C improved, insulin resistance improved as measured by HOMA-IR, cholesterol and triglycerides came down, inflammation markers improved, and across the studies, there was a significantly lower risk of dying from any cause. Think about that for a moment. A single dietary variable, fiber, at the right dose, improving blood sugar, insulin sensitivity, lipids, inflammation, and mortality. And these weren't studies using fiber supplements as a shortcut. These were real dietary patterns built around whole foods. So why does fiber do this? Why does it have such a profound effect on blood sugar? The answer has nothing to do with fiber blocking sugar in a simplistic way. Fiber works because it changes core physiology. It alters how glucose enters the bloodstream, how insulin signals at the cellular level, how the gut microbiome communicates with the liver, and how much glucose the liver releases overnight. First, soluble fiber slows the rate at which carbohydrates are digested and absorbed. When soluble fiber mixes with food in the digestive tract, it forms a viscous gel that slows gastric emptying and thickens the contents of the small intestine. This physically delays glucose absorption, flattening the curve after meals. Instead of glucose flooding the bloodstream all at once, it enters gradually, requiring less insulin and placing less stress on insulin-resistant cells. This is why many people notice fewer post-meal spikes within days of increasing fiber intake. But the deeper benefits take longer because fiber doesn't just act in the gut, it changes signaling. A second meta-analysis looks specifically at soluble fiber, the gel-forming type found in foods like oats, beans, lentils, chia seeds, flaxseed, and many fruits and vegetables. This review analyzed 22 randomized controlled trials and found that consuming just 7 to 12 grams of soluble fiber per day, not total fiber, just soluble fiber, significantly improved fasting glucose, fasting insulin, and HOMA-IR, a direct measure of insulin resistance. What's important here is that these improvements were not driven by weight loss. They were driven by fiber directly altering digestion speed, gut hormone signaling, and insulin sensitivity itself. This is one of the reasons carbohydrates don't cause insulin resistance. They simply reveal it. When insulin signaling improves, carbohydrates stop being a problem. Fiber also plays a major role in fasting blood sugar because of its effect on the liver. Your liver releases glucose all night long to keep your brain functioning. In an insulin-sensitive liver, insulin signals the liver to slow that release when enough glucose is already circulating. But when the liver is insulin resistant, often because it's storing excess fat, it doesn't listen. It continues releasing glucose, which is why so many people wake up with high fasting numbers even when they barely ate the night before. High fiber diets improve this by improving insulin sensitivity at the liver, reducing liver fat over time, and lowering hepatic glucose production. This is why fiber consistently lowers fasting blood sugar, not just post-meal readings. There's also compelling evidence from studies using psyllium, a viscous soluble fiber. A 2024 meta-analysis of 19 randomized controlled trials found that psyllium lowered fasting blood sugar by about 7 milligrams per deciliter, reduced A1C by roughly 0.75 percentage points, and improved markers of insulin resistance. What's remarkable is that these improvements occurred even without major diet changes. Fiber wasn't lowering blood sugar because people ate less. It lowered blood sugar because it changed the biology of glucose movement through the body, slowed gastric emptying, increased gut hormone release like GLP-1 and PYY, improved microbiome activity, and reduced liver glucose output. When you put all of this together, the therapeutic range becomes very clear. Across decades of research, meaningful metabolic improvements consistently occur around 30 to 45 grams of total fiber per day, with at least 7 to 12 grams coming from soluble fiber specifically. That's the range where insulin sensitivity improves, fasting glucose comes down, post-meal spikes flatten, cholesterol improves, and inflammation decreases. The problem is that most people are eating 12 to 15 grams per day, not even half of the therapeutic dose. So let's talk about what this actually looks like in real life. Hitting 35 to 45 grams of fiber does not require extreme eating or living on salads. Breakfast is often the easiest and most powerful place to front load fiber because it sets the tone for your blood sugar for the entire day. When you start the morning with a high fiber, low fat meal, you're not just preventing a spike, you're improving insulin sensitivity for the meals that come after it. A perfect example is something like a buckwheat breakfast cereal. Buckwheat is naturally rich in fiber, slow digesting carbohydrates, and plant compounds that support glucose control. When you cook it into a warm cereal and top it with fruit, maybe some berries or sliced banana, and add small amounts of chia seeds or ground flax, you're easily reaching 15 to 18 grams of fiber at breakfast alone. That's before noon. And because this meal is low in saturated fat and high in soluble fiber, glucose enters the bloodstream slowly. Insulin doesn't have to work as hard, and your energy stays steady instead of crashing mid-morning. Lunch is where fiber really starts to stack up, and this is where people often underestimate how powerful a well-built bowl can be. A lunch built around something like a balsamic roasted tempeh bowl checks all the boxes. You've got a base of whole grains or starchy vegetables, a generous portion of greens, and a protein-rich food like tempeh that also contributes fiber. Add roasted vegetables, maybe some beans or lentils, and suddenly lunch alone is delivering another 15 to 18 grams of fiber without feeling heavy or restrictive. This combination does two important things at once. It keeps post-meal blood sugar flatter, and it trains your muscles to pull glucose out of the bloodstream more efficiently throughout the afternoon. That's why people often notice fewer afternoon spikes and fewer cravings when lunch is built this way. By the time you get to dinner, you don't need anything extreme or complicated. Dinner is simply about continuing the pattern. A bowl built around beans, lentils, potatoes, or edamame paired with plenty of vegetables is more than enough to finish the day in the therapeutic fiber range. Something like a curry-style carb bowl with a base of whole food carbohydrates, legumes, and vegetables typically contributes another 10 to 15 grams of fiber on its own. And because dinner stays low in saturated fat and rich in fiber, it doesn't overload the liver at night. Instead of pushing glucose higher overnight, it actually supports calmer fasting numbers the next morning. When you zoom out, this is what's so important to understand. You don't need fiber hacks. You don't need powders, pills, or extreme rules. You're simply spreading fiber across the day in a way your body can actually use. Breakfast front loads it to stabilize the morning. Lunch reinforces insulin sensitivity when you're most active. Dinner finishes the job without overwhelming digestion or sleep. That's how you can consistently reach 35 to 45 grams of fiber per day, the same range used in clinical trials, while still enjoying food, feeling full, and seeing your blood sugar respond quickly. The final piece that matters is context. Fiber improves insulin sensitivity, but saturated fat blocks insulin signaling. If you're eating high fiber foods while also consuming large amounts of cheese, butter, oils, coconut products, or fatty meats, you're working against yourself. That's why the Mastering Diabetes method always pairs high fiber with very low saturated fat and whole food carbohydrates. This combination clears fat from the liver and muscle cells, the true cause of insulin resistance, allowing insulin to work the way it's supposed to. So now you know the exact fiber dose that lowers blood sugar, the mechanisms behind why it works, and how to hit that range with real meals. If you want the exact meal plans we use to help people consistently reach 35 to 45 grams of fiber per day while keeping saturated fat low, comment guide below and we'll send them to you. You don't need to fear carbs. You don't need extreme diets. You need the right fiber dose applied consistently. If this video helped you, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone ready to improve their blood sugar. Until next time, keep those carbs high and that A1C low.